Hello guys, today we finish our work on everything related to the player base. Last we left off we were dealing with a zombie apocalypse. Fortunately we found an antidote. After a bit of research, I noticed that the exit node in the animation controller doesn't actually end the animation sequence, it just takes it back to the entry node. Kind of similar to Windows. If you want to turn off you go to the start button. But I got it to work and added some new tasks on Taiga. Let's start working on those. Why don't the towers attack? We really can't have a tower defense game if the towers do not defend. Maybe I should just implement the chess feature instead of dealing with pacifist towers. So basically, since we optimize the game by limiting what the towers and enemies can see and interact with in terms of layers, we need to make sure that the towers, after being built, are set to the proper layer, not the default layer, which does not see enemies. In the build script we change layers to hide the tower and show a ghost tower with some shader animation. By reverting layers it just reverts to default, and default layers do not interact with enemies. So we need to create a dictionary which holds every part of the tower model and their respective layers, so that we can revert back those models to their proper layers, not the default one. Success. Our towers are no longer pacifists and will bombard the crap out of the undead enemies attacking our base. Let's put a comment on our task, describing how we resolve this problem, for future reference. And let's just drag this here and move on. Undead boss reaction time is insanely bad. We will fine-tune all the timing details later on with Dofa, but this is hurting my brain, let's fix it. And move on. Let's place our player base back in its original place, at the end of the map. Let's adjust it based on enemies' attacking range. And move on. And by move on I mean shut down my computer because the power went out. The power comes back, I turn on my computer and open the project. I add a sound effect for the insta-kill player base ability. Boom. I move on. I add the necessary code to add the endgame screen. I check whether the temporary endgame screen works, and I move on. I want to add a screen effect when the player leaves. A visual cue notifying the player that creeps have reached the base, and the player base lost some health. I do some research a bit. Implement my own solution. And move on. Let's add some tasks and clean up our task board. In this 3-part series, we made the player base functional. We had to modify the creeps to enable them to attack the player base. The player base instantly kills the creeps that attack it, but it also takes damage. We added some visual and sound effects when this happens. We will certainly do small changes and polish everything at a later stage, but for now we move on. Next up we are going to work on the transmute feature. Stay tuned for more updates.